Yo, what up, everyone? Welcome on in to the second episode of the Berserk PodPlay, as we call it. For those who are new, what we do here is we combine a podcast and a Let's Play. We play this Berserk Band of the Hawk game and basically just talk over it about Berserk. I am here with MulletWesker. You can find him over at twitch.tv/MulletWesker, an excellent streamer. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my friend.
Thank you very much, sir. You can also find me on YouTube. I primarily play lots of horror games, FPS, some RPG, and action, and I'm a massive Berserk nerd, as you may already know. And I just recently caught up on the 40th volume of manga. I believe it's the latest one. So, yeah, we have some stuff to talk about.
Oh, yeah. I am also a huge Berserk nerd. He is a couple chapters behind because he only reads the volumes, but we'll forgive him for now.
True.
But we're going to do this a little differently than the first episode. We're going to have kind of a theme or a question to answer to talk about the whole time. And this one is going to be all about the Skull Knight. So basically, I had this thought that everyone who's a Berserk fan can agree that the Skull Knight and Guts are pretty much similar. They've gone through the same things. They're kind of a reflection of each other. So that got me thinking, now that Guts has this, what I call an RPG party, aka Puck, Ishidoro, Serpico, Casca, all those people.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Does that mean the Skull Knight also had his own RPG party back when he was going through what Guts is going through right now? And who would those people would be based on what we know right now? So we don't know a ton about the Skull Knight. We don't know a ton about the people who know the Skull Knight or have a history of Skull Knight. So this is going to be a lot of assumptions, a lot of speculation, and it's really just for fun. Also, fair warning, getting this out of the way, spoilers will be happening. So if you've not all the way caught up or mostly caught up, fair warning right now, there's going to be spoilers throughout.
Pretty much. For everything.
Yes.
Since the Skull Knight is tied into very critical parts of the plot.
Yes. So let me get this going. I forget where we left off.
I don't even remember what the last episode / level you played was.
I think
and there was one other after that?
I'm just going to start right here, right after Zod.
Alright.
Because I feel like we didn't get very far after Zod.
No, you did this one. I remember.
I did do this one?
Yeah, because I remember you were fighting in green fields just like that towards the end of the last episode.
Then maybe we'll do this one.
Dude, I really dig the music in this game.
It's pretty solid. It really is.
Is it all original? It sounds like it.
I think so. So, alright. Now that the game has started, let's start. So, I was thinking we would do this smallest character to, like, biggest. And we'd just start with Puck. That would be the smallest that I think.
Wait, are we talking smallest in size or smallest in relevance to the story?
Let's say both.
Okay. Well, I don't know if that's entirely true. Puck's pretty integral, you know?
Yeah, he says funny jokes sometimes.
He says funny stuff sometimes.
He's
Alright, so
the
the question is there a Puck equivalent to the Skull Knight from his time as he was venturing however many years ago against the God Hand, right?
Yes.
Well, we don't know many other fairies in the plot, do we? There's the little one that Shirk has, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know there's other fairies out there, but if the Skull Knight had one to himself, we don't know that character I don't think.
So it doesn't have to be a character, or I'm sorry, it doesn't have to be a fairy per se, but just a character that would kind of fill Puck's shoes, you know?
Well, so Puck is sort of, I mean, he's mainly the comic relief, right?
Right.
But that's not really integral to Guts' story. Puck is more so the little guy on his shoulder that talks into his ear and gives him ideas or feedback, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we know that the Skull Knight, I mean, it's like, we're like 99.9% positive he was a king at some point, correct?
Yeah.
So if the Skull Knight was a king, it's very likely he would have had servants, aides, a council, and somebody in one of those roles could have been like his Puck, like an advisor, perhaps?
Yeah.
But then again, I guess that begs the question. We also believe the Skull Knight sacrificed his entire kingdom, right?
So here's the thing about that. If he is truly Guts, then no. Someone in his kingdom sacrificed his entire kingdom. And and then he would be the Guts character, the one survivor.
I see.
In theory.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, we don't know much about who he, would have been around. We know very little. Besides Flora, we don't know anyone that the Skull Knight knew from long ago. So, I mean, that's where I'd put my money, on that he would have some sort of, voice of reason in his quest. Probably would have come from his old royalty group. I mean, I don't know, did the Skull Knight have children, maybe?
Possibly. That's all speculation. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be speculation. But,
oh, yeah.
How I see it...
A lot of this is being pulled right out of thin air.
Yeah. The one character I think Puck could be, because you think about it, Puck is a little bit more than the comic relief. He's kind of the person who keeps Guts sane, at least at first.
Yes.
Because he was there, he was the one character from the RPG party that, which I'm going to be saying a lot, FYI.
Yeah.
But, he's the one character that was there during the Black Swordsman days. So
that's true. He was the only continuous sidekick.
Mm-hmm. So, in a way, he was the one who kept Guts grounded, even though during that time he didn't do a good job. Guts was still pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you're not going to do a good job with Guts in his mental state at that moment in time.
You're working with something tough there. But,
yes.
I would say the only character that we know of, and this is kind of a funny comparison, would be Skull Knight's horse.
Okay.
So, Skull Knight's horse, I guess you could say, keeps him sane. It seems like he cares for the horse a little bit, and the horse is kind of just there, everywhere Skull Knight is. Just like how Puck is there, everywhere Guts goes.
That's true. So you're thinking of like a Geralt of Rivia kind of situation where he maybe talks to his horse, even if his horse doesn't actually talk back to him.
Yeah, something like that, or just, I'm kind of just stretching. Oh, I won already. I'm kind of just...
You finished the level already?
Yeah, apparently that guy I killed was the boss.
Nice.
But yeah, that's the only character that I could think of, and like I said, pretty funny comparison, but...
Okay. Are there parts where he actually talks to his horse? I don't remember.
No, there isn't. The horse, barely even neighs. But
well, I mean, it is an undead horse, right? Or so we think?
Yeah, we would assume. So that would be a giant difference, because Puck never shuts up.
Right.
But the only other option is that we just haven't met that character, and might never meet that character.
I mean, right, do we even know how old the Skull Knight is?
I mean, he's older than at least one cycle, and that's like 1,000 years or some shit.
Right, so that leaves a long window.
Yes, and I think fairies are, able to be that old and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's also a weird thing with time in the anime where it's not always, like the human time frame is different than
from the elven one.
yeah, and also like the dark world and all the different worlds have like their own timeline, but yeah. Anything else for Puck that you can think of?
I mean, not really. I would speculate that being a king and being a ruthless... I mean, he was a warrior king, right? That's the story Judo tells Guts when they go to rescue Griffith.
Yeah.
So being that kind of character in my mind, I don't see him keeping a character like Puck around. But on the flip side, Guts was not the kind of character to keep someone like Puck around either. And Puck was like, well, I'm with you, so suck it up.
Yeah, and Guts didn't want Puck around either, so...
No. I mean, I'm sure he certainly does now, but... So no, that's about it for me on a Puck-esque person. But, I mean, I'm sure you've got some thought.
Alright, well, this is one of the saddest moments in the anime.
This is, like, the most human moment for Guts.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's not an unfeeling killing machine.
Yeah. He is still a killing machine, but he does feel.
Oh. He does feel.
But, so next character would be Ishidoro, if I'm saying that correctly. You know,
yes,
the kid that follows around.
The little bastard with a fire dagger.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You first on this one?
Okay, why? So...
You're just stuck on this poor kid, aren't you?
No, my phone was doing dumb things, but I'm back. I just threw it away. But, oh, I like that they draw the calluses on his hands, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, he's got to have the worst hands.
Yeah.
Well, the worst hand.
So Ishidoro, I would also say could be the horse. Because there's... I really feel like there is not a character for Ishidoro that we've met. But if we have to pick one, I would say it's either the horse, which is another funny comparison, or I'd say it's Zod. And I think that's a big stretch, but I say that because Zod's relationship to the Skull Knight is kind of a respectful one, but also like it's not hatred there. They don't hate each other, but there's something between them that like there's a competition of sorts.
I think I can elaborate on that a little.
Yeah.
So we all know that Zod lives to battle.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Any other part of his identity as a person or character is pretty much gone, right? He lives to fight. And I don't think the Skull Knight really cares about fighting Zod. I think Zod just knows, oh, hey, this Skull Knight bastard who I encounter now and again over the last couple hundred years, he's the greatest challenge I've got to fight outside of Guts, who is, you know, the best human adversary Zod's ever taken on multiple times. So I think there's not really a level of respect on both ends. I think the only respect would come from Zod because he admires warriors.
Yeah, I could believe that.
And I think Skull Knight doesn't respect him in any way on a personal level, but he respects that Zod is probably one of the few characters that could take the Skull Knight out if he's not careful.
True.
So I think Skull Knight respects him in a, this guy is dangerous, and I need to treat him that way sort of way. Not a, this guy is a worthy foe who I like to duel.
Yeah. That is like the base idea of it, and just trying to think of these characters and where Zod would fit, I would go a little farther to say that if there's a history between Skull Knight, say Zod and Skull Knight knew each other when they were humans, perhaps that character would be Ishidoro, just because Ishidoro is also trying to kind of best Guts trying to become better, because he's always he's following in Guts' footsteps, but he's also trying to like constantly saying like, I'm doing it my way, like I'm not doing it Guts' way, you know.
He wants to be able to stand on his own and kick ass and have people admire him the way people do Guts, and it's sort of comedic in a way because Guts doesn't want any of that, and it happens, you know.
Right.
And Isidro, or I'm sorry if I butcher his name, is like, ugh, I want that, and he tries so hard.
Right.
He's trying too hard.
And like, that's why I say that comparison, and again, I'm saying it's a stretch, but the comparison that Ishidoro could be compared to Zod, because Zod is constantly trying to bet Skull Knight.
Zod is constantly trying to sharpen his skill set, his battle prowess.
Yeah, and he's trying to do it his own way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, a stretch.
I see it. I mean, there's some kind of level there, because, you know, Isidro wants to be on Guts' level, and to get on Guts' level, you have to be one hell of a warrior, you know? The only people that can really stand up to Guts in the current point of the manga are non-humans.
Yeah, and even then.
And even then, yes. And Zod is one of the few that's capable of doing so. There's a strive for perfection that they both have, even though the two characters I don't think have ever really met. I think Isidro has seen Zod, but I don't think there's been any interaction.
Yeah. And
no one fights Zod except Skull and Guts.
Yeah.
Everyone else just dies.
Well, and one thing I like about that comparison, because it would also tell the future of Ishidoro, which would mean that he uses a Behelit to get stronger than Guts. Which, again, doubt that's going to happen, but it's a cool thing to think about, you know?
I won't lie, I have not entertained that idea that one of Guts' own companions would stoop to that level, but I think that'd be an interesting arc, if that was the case.
Right. Because another thing with Zod is he's different than most apostles. Most apostles have some sort of like almost
they're still trying to do
problem.
Stupid. They're still trying to do something, like be, you know, they're trying to like own cities or be mayors or have some kind of end goal. And Zod's just like, I just want to kill stuff, man.
Yeah, and
I'm raw human feeling here.
Mm-hmm. And I would go farther to where most apostles Guts have run into have like some sort of mental block or even mental like illness to where they don't want to admit something, you know, they don't want to admit that they'd sacrifice someone, or there's something in their life that like made them bad.
Because deep
Zod
down they're still human,
right? And Zod, on the other hand, he knows who he is. He knows he just wants to battle, you know. He knows himself, which is different than other apostles.
Right, he has accepted fully what he's become and what he probably had to give up to do that.
Right. So, anything else for Ishidoro? Do you think there's a character out there that could be compared to him?
I mean, I really don't. Not from the Skull Knight side, except maybe what we haven't considered is that are there characters in Elfhelm? Is it Elfhelm or Elfheim? God, I'm terrible at this.
I think it's Elfheim.
Elfheim. Are there other characters in Elfheim that are aware of the Skull Knight? Because if Flora helped him out, I mean, we know she did. Who's to say there aren't other mages that are older that could have fulfilled one of those roles,
right?
Like Isidro.
So in the chapter that you haven't read yet, there is one character, but it's very insignificant, like, or at least it's too early to tell what kind of relationship they had. But Skull Knight definitely knew this one witch.
Okay.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. All right.
But it didn't seem like their meeting together was like, oh, hey, it's been so long. How have you been? You know, it was just like, oh, hey, I know you. I saw you at a party once. You know, like it was kind of that meeting.
Yeah, it was a party. There were a lot of people sacrificed. What up?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, they went to one of the Skull Knight's old banquets where he just, you know, sacrificed people.
It was crazy times.
Yeah, right? No, I got nothing else for an Isidro type comparison.
Alrighty, then
Although I do want to revisit the Zod Skull Knight relationship later.
yes, which we'll do right now because the next
Okay.
character is Serpico. So,
Okay.
do you have any comparison for him?
Again, nothing jumps to mind. I would default to someone related to Elfheim or, you know, someone in the Mages group. Because Serpico started off as someone who wanted to kill Guts, right? I mean, I think Serpico himself says it not all that long ago in the manga. That's how he viewed Guts in the beginning. And, I mean, Zod, too, was ready to go ahead and kill Guts. And decided not to.
Correct.
No, I mean, I don't have anyone in particular. If I were to make someone up, I kind of want to go back to Zod.
Yeah.
Because they've got that adversarial relationship where they're like, oh, you, but they just can't kill one another.
Oh, you, I'll get you one day, but not today.
Yeah. Here you are trying to get into another eclipse situation. You gotta stay out now. I wonder what that's like for Zod being the God Hand's guard dog. Like, does he actually enjoy that? Or is he like, well, if the Skull Knight's gonna show up, sign me up, put me on the top of the list for first call.
Yeah, I feel like there is a little bit of that. And also, Zod, I don't know if fear is the correct term, right? But he definitely knows he cannot fight the God Hand. He knows. I would say that he knows he would not be able to defeat the God Hand if he tried.
I mean, all of the apostles basically bend over in the face of any God Hand. Period. It seems.
Right.
I mean,
Zod is the one that
Guts,
does it the least, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, of all the apostles, Zod definitely has most of his individuality.
Actually, I'm gonna take that back. Wild did not give a shit about the God Hand, which is why Zod kills him.
Ah, you're right. Well, here's a question, and I can't remember because it's been so long ago. When Wild is in the middle of attacking the Band of the Hawk and is about to kill Guts, does he see the red Balet anywhere on Griffith? Because I think at that... No, it's not even there at that time. It's floating down the river.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're right. Wild would have no idea that, you know, Griffith was a chosen one.
I think Zod tells him, though. I think Zod appears and says, like, yo, man, this guy's protected. And Wild's like, man, I don't fucking care. I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah, it's something along the lines of Wild is like, what are you doing as apostles of the God Hand? He mentions like some kind of law. He says like we can do whatever we want and nothing can stop us. And Zod's like, I know, that's what I'm doing, and then kills him.
Yeah,
he doesn't even give Wild a proper explanation.
Not even kills him, straight up like executes him. That was so cool.
Oh yeah, I think he like rips him in half. It's something really nice.
I remember it. He picks him up and
like rips him in two pieces.
Yeah, he puts him over his head and just fucking pulls him down onto his horns and then rips him in half.
Yes. God, dude, those fucking horns. Why did Griffith have to take a horn? I don't even think Griffith tried to talk to him. He was just like, I'm cutting off your horn first, and you're working for me now. It's like, well, all you had to do was ask, bro.
Yeah,
you have
right?
to maim me first.
That is interesting, though. I mean, Guts has one arm cut off. Zod has one horn cut off. Ooh.
And you know what I forgot about? Griffith's only meeting with Zod before he was Femto was when Zod almost killed him in Guts. All those years before.
Yeah.
Like a year or two before the eclipse.
Very true. Yeah, that's why he cut off his horn. Just like, man, you hurt me pretty bad that day. Fuck you, dude.
I mean, I assume it's like a generic like show of power, you know, of like, hey, this is what I can do now. Submit to me. You're gonna do what I ask.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Because Griffith doesn't even try to. Like, he uses... It's like that freaking Shaggy meme. Like, I've only used 1% of my power.
I was on set one day, and just Shaggy's power was ridiculous. I couldn't approach him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're supposed to tie this back to Serpico somehow.
Yes.
I mean, are there hints anywhere of any sort of sidekick to the Skull Knight that perhaps used magic weapons or wind power?
So that's tough, because, okay, so here's my thing about this. I don't believe... How should I say this? So, I would compare Serpico to Zod again. And this is actually my second favorite comparison. Because you already said it, that they have, like, this fighting... This adversary, like, frenemies kind of thing going between Guts and Serpico.
Yes.
Yeah, and you could say the same about Skull Knight and Zod. And an interesting thing about this is the way they fight, both Guts and Serpico. Because Guts fights more like Zod. But
like an animal.
Yes. While Serpico actually fights more like Skull Knight. He's more strategic, more finesse, you know. He uses finesse, I would
well,
say.
he really has to be. He doesn't have the strength.
Right.
And
every
time...
No, go ahead.
I remember this. I think this was their first encounter where Barnett and Serpico were, like, sneaking along this cliff's edge, and they get into a fight with Guts. I think this was all during the Conviction arc.
Yes, it was.
And Guts can't do much, because if he swings his sword too much, his own momentum is just going to pull him over the cliff.
Yeah, because they're literally fighting on a ledge.
Like, like a ledge you would shimmy in an Indiana Jones Uncharted situation.
Yeah.
And you have this, 250-pound man in 120-pound armor with an 200-pound sword. They don't have a lot of room to maneuver.
And if I remember, Guts catches the sword with his metal arm.
Something like that. And then, later on, they're fighting in, like, this underground area with all these pillars. And Serpico uses the pillars. It's still a tight space. He uses the pillars to Guts' disadvantage to effectively block his attacks and, like, kind of move quickly around them and use them as cover.
Right. Because it will slow down.
Like that.
Right. Because killing those pillars will slow Guts' attacks down.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
A great deal.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some similarity there, I suppose, in the way they fight.
Yeah, but it's like a contrast thing too, because there's Serpico fights more like Skull Knight, but I'm also comparing Serpico to Zod. So the thing is, I like this idea a lot because of what it means for Serpico's future. So
elaborate.
That would mean, like I said with Ishiduro, that would mean that he would have to use a Behelit to become an apostle. And I
don't think Serpico would ever do that.
Well, here's the thing.
Barnes is the perfect sacrifice?
Not sacrifice, but the perfect reason, I would say.
To gain more power?
Because the whole reason why he fights Guts is to protect Farnese. So if Guts... And he always blames Guts for whenever Farnese gets in trouble. And he straight up says, like, hey, dude, if she ever gets, like, fucked up, I'm coming for you.
Well, that's early on, though, right? Or does he still say that?
It's kind of still a thing, but yeah, he is more trustworthy of Guts now because he sees the change that Farnese is making as a character.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say Farnese dies in the story. And it's Guts' fault, or at least Serpico blames Guts.
Mm-hmm.
Then that could really put Serpico on the deep end. And yeah, he could just straight up say, hey, I want more power. And he might, who knows? Maybe they don't use a sacrifice for Serpico. Maybe, because like we said, Zod is kind of a special apostle in a way. Maybe he's such a strong warrior or something special about him that he doesn't necessarily need a sacrifice. Or Farnese dying counts as a sacrifice. Like, there's a lot of ways to put it. But I like that, because going back to what we were saying about how there's this respect between Zod and Skull Knight. That there's also this respect between Serpico, and a very similar respect between Serpico and Guts. Like, you've already used the examples of Serpico being strategic, because he knows if he does a one-on-one fight with Guts, he'll lose.
Oh yeah, especially if there's nothing around him to take advantage of. Absolutely.
Right. So he respects Guts' strength, but he'll also fight Guts. He's not afraid to fight Guts.
Right.
He just
That's been proven a couple of times.
Right. And there is something, like, you see those eyes of Serpico when he gets, like, serious.
Oh, he looks like a psychotic Link, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's a little crazy. So I think that's a really cool comparison. Just seeing Farnese dying, and then Serpico kind of being like, all right, that's it. You know,
That's
whatever.
it.
Yeah, whatever.
We're going to Murder Town now.
Yep. Like, he gets in touch with the God Hand at the same time, and they're like, hey, if you want to kill Guts, we can make that happen.
I got you. So Farnese dies, whether it's Guts' fault directly, indirectly, or not at all. Serpico is like, okay, well, this is what I've been saying. This is what his mind is locked onto, because Farnese is essentially his sister, not his lover, but
no,
it's someone on the same level.
They've been very close since children.
Right. Yeah, I don't see it happening, but I can see it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Most of these probably won't happen, right? We probably won't run into Skull Knight's RGB party.
But
very well might not even have one.
Right. Unlike Isidro, though, Serpico would be the better candidate with the motives and the reasons and the will to do all of what we just said over Isidro, who doesn't really have a Farnese type.
Right. And that's why I like I said, Isidro is kind of a stretch. I don't think Serpico is much of a stretch. I still don't think it will happen, but, you know, this is just a fun conversation.
All right. Is there more between those two?
I think that covers it as far as what I would need to say. Do you have anything to add?
To add to the comparison between Serpico and his Skull Knight equivalent?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay. Then, now we get to the ladies. And perfect timing, because here's Casca right here. In one of her...
This fucking guy.
Yeah. Fucking, I hate this character.
Dude, Miura's really good at writing characters that you just want to see die.
Well, he's a lot better in the manga, but man, I hated him in the 97 anime.
Oh yeah, he's terrible there. I mean, you see way more of him there.
Yeah, and he's just, like, too much. I think they even added scenes with him. But, like, in the manga, he's actually somewhat respectable. Well, not respectable. Less flat of a character. In the 97 anime, it was just like, yeah, this guy's just like a dumbass, and he's a jerk. And that's about it.
He's the same guy that is commanding all the soldiers during the 100-man fight.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
While fuck, what was I gonna say? While in the manga, his character is more like, yeah, he is that. He's a dumbass and he's an asshole, but he also has a reason for being an asshole because, like, his something, I don't know exactly, but something like his brother is a giant dick. And he's trying. His
brother's a giant dick.
Yeah, he's trying to be like better than his brother.
I see.
Like, yeah, like politics type shit.
I got.
So he's a little more rounded of a character. While in the 97 anime, he was just a flat, stupid dude.
Yeah, big boisterous guy that you can't wait to see get his shit pushed in.
Yeah, although it is great that Casca gets defeated by him because it's like the one character that Casca shouldn't be defeated by. And it's just because she was having a really bad time of the month.
She was having a really bad time.
Yeah. And yet she was still out there fighting. And actually gave him a little bit of run for his money.
Oh yeah. Well, let's face it. If she didn't have a disadvantage, she would have murdered the guy. You know,
easily.
I mean, she was on the verge of passing out. I think that's what she does.
She
right?
does,
She falls off the cliff.
I just one-shot him, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Take that,
Aiden?
Adon, you
That's
piece of
his name?
fucking asshole.
Aiden.
Adon, yeah. Yeah, this is it right here. She passes out.
Well, Soda, going back to Skull and characters that are part of his RPG party, his traveling group of weirdos, he was a king. That stands to reason he had a queen, right?
Yeah. So yeah, next after Serpico, we'd have the ladies. So that's Farnese, Sheik, Shriek, however you say it, and Casca. So are you saying his queen would be his Casca, whoever that queen may be?
Yeah, I mean that's where my mind goes.
That would make sense. It's a fair assumption. I would say the only character that we could compare these women to at all, and it's the same character for all three, would be Flora. That's basically the last character we have left.
Do we know how old Flora is?
I think it's one of those things where she's been in that tree for so long that time has been different for her.
Ah, so you're saying time for her may have gone really slow while the rest of the world just passed on by?
Right. I think that's what it was. So, do you have anything to say about these three women characters?
Well, I would think as a warrior king, it stands to reason he might have had a warrior queen, and that person could have played numerous roles. If the Skull Knight indeed used a Bailet and sacrificed, it could have been that person to him that was the sacrifice. Or, like you were saying, someone else could have killed her. And, that's one of his reasons why he's traveling to fight against the God Hand.
Yes. Now, not necessarily even kill her, but could have been the other survivor in the eclipse that he went through. So,
yes.
Again, equivalent to Casca.
Yes.
So, anything else before I go on my tangent?
No, go ahead. You can take over.
Yeah, because I've thought about this a lot.
Okay.
So I'll start with the most obvious.
I've more so thought about Zod and his relationship. That's the big one to me. So
yeah.
You take this.
Fair enough. I'll start with the most obvious, which is Shriek, whatever.
Shirk is how I call her.
Shirk, sure.
Yeah.
Just makes sense because, witch and a witch, and Flora seem to have had experience with the darker arts, which is why Sheik has this more knowledge of the darker arts than other witches.
Well, Shirk is like that one witch that when everybody gets to the island, summons the big Burning Man, and they're like, "You can't do that. That's magic we're not supposed to use."
Right. And in one of the chapters that you haven't seen, they straight up show their power, Sheik and Farnese. And all the other witches are like Sheik uses an example of the dark. She summons a dark shadow, and they're like, "Oh my god, how the hell does she do that? She's messing with the darkness." Whoa, yeah,
stepping into the dark side.
Yeah, and they're even and she's doing so well at it. Holy crap! But so Flora could have definitely been that person that protected the Skull Knight from going crazy. That protected him in his berserker armor, etc., etc. That's the most obvious.
I don't think there's a doubt in anybody's mind that Flora was Skull Knight's Shirk.
Right.
That helped him get to where he was, or where he is. A husk whose soul is trapped in armor because his body has been beaten away over 1,000 years.
Yes. Which, I thought about that more. Perhaps his body, just a side note here, perhaps his body wasn't beaten away through battle, Perhaps it just deteriorated from being so old. And he's just a skeleton now. Which would be funny, because if that's true, that means eventually he'd become a fossil.
I mean, he kind of is, right? How old do bones in the ground have to be before they're fossils?
I mean, it's pretty long time, but like...
They just have to be found and previously not known to have been there, right?
Yeah, right? But yeah, you're right. Shriek is the most obvious answer to that. Now, the next comparison would be Farnese. Because while Shriek is a powerful witch, Farnese, you could even argue, is more powerful. And here's why.
Okay.
She's new to this. And again, this last chapter that you didn't see, when she does her little experiment that shows off what she can do, everyone's like, they say, like, wait, isn't she an adult? Like, because there's a thing that witches have to start when they're young, or else they can't be a witch. So, like, how is she doing this as an adult? Like, how does she learn?
Like Jedi?
Yeah, yeah. But, and they even say something like, she does this, I forget what it's called, like a commune with the spirits or some shit. And, they say, like, how long has she been doing this? Like, she's been doing this for 6 months? It took me, like, 2 years to do that. Like, you know?
Yeah.
So she's clearly a powerful witch. And even though she doesn't believe it herself. But she is.
Right. She's got that connection. She's got those midichlorians.
Yes. So, that would argue that you would need a powerful witch to control Guts. Now, that would also mean that something would happen to Shriek where she could not help Guts anymore, and Farnese would have to take over. Which would be great for that character, because Farnese is constantly trying to talk about, like, how can I repay Guts? How can I help Guts?
Yes.
And that would be
so that's the answer in your mind, is that she's going to basically replace Shirk at some point.
Could be, yeah. Which, what does that mean for Shirk? Is she gonna die? Like, is she gonna go crazy? You know, that's a tough question there.
You know, well, here's an idea. So we all know that as it stands, one-on-one, Griffith is too powerful for Guts to fight, right?
Right.
We know that the secret to Guts' victory, at least I think we know, lies in the help of his companions, even if that doesn't necessarily mean they're standing right next to him, also swinging their swords at Griffith, because all Griffith has got to do is snap his fingers and their intestines are going to be outside their body, right?
Right.
So maybe Shirk is going to do sort of like a Spirit Jedi situation. Like, you know how she kind of fades into nothingness and is with Guts in his armor when the armor is driving his actions?
Yeah, she's that, like, ethereal ghost, like...
Yeah, her ethereal form is helping him, right?
Right.
What if she does a Jedi ghost thing like that, where that is her form permanently? And she, like, the only way to give Guts the strength to stand up to Guts, or Griffith, is to do something like that, where she has to basically give up her physical form and life to reinforce him on the ethereal plane. And then Farnese would be the one aiding from the outside in the physical world, as Shirk does now, mostly.
Yeah.
Because we know that the world is, like, the interstice is now laid over top of the world, right? Essentially, the world of man and demon are molded together. And we know that when Guts swings his sword, it moves through 2 dimensions simultaneously, because of all the demon blood that it has basically been exposed to has made his sword magical in a sense.
Yes.
So it exists in 2 realms. So I'm kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but I'm thinking that the fight with Griffith in the end will be a battle between the 2 realms. And maybe that's the weakness that needs to be exploited for a God Hand to essentially be injured and die. And Guts can't do that even with his sword alone, unless Shirk is in that other realm, guiding him and protecting him from the mass influx of spirits that want to consume him for his brand.
Yeah, that makes
Information
sense to me.
dump and/slash.
Yeah. Now, that would be an interesting... Because I didn't think much about what would happen to Shriek. I just thought something would have to happen for Fernice to take over. But that is an interesting thing for it to happen at the end of Guts. I was thinking it would happen beforehand, and then Fernice would have to take over for the fight of Guts, and then she would end up being a more powerful ally. But your idea I like a lot better. It's just an interesting thing to think about.
Like, maybe Shirk finds herself in a situation where she's going to die, and she knows it, and the only way she can still live on or be of help in the future is to go full spirit mode. Who knows?
Yeah. And that is an interesting thing, because she is constantly, like, putting herself at risk. So it's very realistic that it could, like, finally catch up to her.
Agreed.
Now, a thing about that, though, is if we're going back to Serpico becoming Zod, that would mean Fernice doesn't actually die, which then the comparison between Serpico and Zod wouldn't be a thing. Which, like, whatever. By the way, I like how I'm already over the 100 kills. And we, like, just got to it
in the 100-man fight, you've already killed more than 100 people?
Yeah.
Nice.
But,
God, how does that... That's great.
But yeah, anything else to add about Fernice before we move on to Casca?
No, I mean, I think we're pretty
Flora?
much hitting the nail on the head that she is going to be a Flora Shirk type of character.
Yes. And it's tough to say exactly what kind. Say that again?
And sooner rather than later, maybe?
Could be, yeah. I feel like something is definitely gonna happen soon in the manga. Because it's been very peaceful lately. And
yeah, dude. When you hit long stretches of peace, it's building up to something bad.
Yes,
right?
Yes, exactly. So, the last character, Casca. This is my favorite comparison.
Okay, lay it on me.
Casca is actually Flora. Is compared to Flora.
Really?
So, now this I think is the least likely, but I'll explain why I think it's the coolest, why I like it the most.
Alright.
So it's very, like, now that Casca is in the elf island and stuff, and all the other women are learning magic, it's not completely crazy to say, oh, maybe Casca will pick it up too. Now, is she going to be a strong witch? It's really too early to say. Probably won't even become a witch. Which would automatically put a nail in this theory. But, for shits and giggles, let's say she does.
Right, we are here for the shits and giggles, so...
Yes. So, if she's Flora, I keep going to, like, what that means for Casca's future. So, the reason why I like it so much is because Flora... Think about Flora's death. It was the
Remind me a little bit about it.
So
it has been a minute.
Yeah, it was right after Guts puts on the Berserker armor. She was in her tree. She knew she was dying, or going to die. She was, like, kind of on death's door. Or at least, you know, she knew it was coming. She accepted it. She was very sane. She was very positive about it. And what happened was Guts' demon army came and pretty much put the tree on fire and all that. I think she did something.
Griffith's demon army, right?
Griffith's demon army, you're right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think
double checking there.
Yeah. I think she even did something, like she used the last of her power, maybe like gave the last of her power to Shriek or something like that. Can't remember exactly. but she died in that fight.
Yes.
Now, going back to comparing her to Skull Knight, if I remember correctly, there is kind of this loving relationship between those two, between Skull Knight and Flora.
I believe it's hinted at. I recall what you're talking about, but there's not a lot shed on that.
Right. And it could very easily... I think they even straight up say, like, oh, I love you. They even use that word. I could be wrong, but... And you could easily argue, oh, but it's just, like, they're saying as a friend, or, you know, just as long-time companions.
They're the type of characters that have friends.
Right,
you know?
Yeah. So, right, it might not be the, like, lover type of I love you. Could just be a friendly one. But it did seem, based on the scene, because they did have this, like, last conversation where Flora's like, you know I have to die, and Skull Knight's like, yeah, I don't want you to, but yeah. And there's, like, a little bit of romantic thing behind it, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Which would lead to that being Casca.
You just yeeted that guy into the next universe.
He just
sorry, I had
fell in this endless.
He was like getting juggled left, right, left.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite attacks in this game. Just this one right here, because you can just do it forever.
God. Anyway, sorry, I had to pull that.
No, it's all good. So the reason why I like this comparison so much, even though I don't think it's very likely, is how Flora dies. Because she dies peacefully. One of the most peaceful deaths in the manga. And yeah, she still burns to death.
I can't even think of a quote-unquote peaceful character death in Berserk.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like she burns to death, but at the same time, she was like, she knew it was coming, she accepted it, she's like...
She planned it out.
Right. She was...
had a purpose.
She died happy, is a good way to put it.
Right.
And the reason for that is because she was able to spend the last however many years in her tree house with a companion that she could teach all her knowledge, like pass on her knowledge. And like she had a very peaceful time there. So if that's Casca, that's very poetic and just beautiful. Because that would mean Casca's future, even though she went through, literally, like, Guts went through some shit, but Casca went through worse, right?
Yeah, I'm not even going to try and argue which one is worse.
Like
they're both beyond the point of bad.
Yeah, they're both unspeakably bad.
Yeah.
But Casca was... trying not to use certain words because of, you know, I don't want to get banned here, but, you know,
sure.
If you saw the Eclipse, you know what Griffith did to Casca.
Yes, yes.
And also she had a baby, kind of, but
sure,
you could argue it was like an abortion. Not an abortion, miscarriage?
A miscarriage.
Of sorts?
Yeah, I think that'd be more accurate.
But it also like a weird, spiritual, otherworldly miscarriage. But still, like, shitty things. And what happened to Guts was physical and emotional because of betrayal, but it was a little different because one, Casca also went through physical changes, mental changes, and like betrayal and felt those same things. But Guts was more angry because of what happened to his friends.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
But that was what happened to Casca. Casca was that thing that happened that made Guts so angry. So, I'm going a little too far into this now. It's easy to say...
That's what we're here for, so...
Yeah, it's easier to say Casca went through worse than Guts. That's the point there. So, after all of that, if she is comparable to Flora, that means she has a peaceful death. She has many years where she is at peace and she enjoys her time alive. which is just beautiful to think of. Very poetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why that's my favorite comparison.
But so you're assuming, your theory is that, like Flora, Casca will need to sacrifice herself for Guts' quest at some point? Because I would not enjoy that. Not one bit.
I would say Flora doesn't really sacrifice herself for Guts' quest. Like, I guess, elaborate on that. What do you mean?
I guess what I'm saying is, we have been waiting for Guts and Casca to reunite and for Casca to be restored for so long that for her to just die at all has got me like, nah, dude, I do not want to see that, you know? Of all the characters, she is the one that I want to see Guts and Casca have a happy ending, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't want that happy ending to be they both die in meaningful ways. I want them to live. I want them to have babies, healthy babies.
Yeah,
you
well...
remember the one flash forward, or the one dream sequence where Guts, I think it's Guts, thinks of him and Casca like living in a little cabin and they have like a child, I want to say.
Yeah.
I want to see that be a reality, even though that's like an anime trope, that's a vision of a future characters will never have.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, but that's probably not going to happen, buddy.
Yeah,
but
there's always an option, you know what I mean?
True. But that's the thing, like, what happened to Flora, that's kind of in their situation, that is arguably the best you're going to get as far as a death. Because it's not even like a death in battle or like some shitty thing happened. It's like she lived her life and she kind of just got old. Because she was getting old. She didn't die of old age necessarily, but like...
But she had lived long enough that she was ready to go.
Right. Exactly. Wow, and here's another comparison to Skull Knight. Because of how old Skull Knight is, because we know that Skull Knight is from the previous cycle now, it would make complete sense. Well, hold on, let me take a step back here.
Okay.
How you remember how what Skull Knight calls Guts, right?
The struggler, right?
Yes. But I think he also calls him the endless struggler, or something along those rounds, right?
Okay. I don't remember that one, but...
I think he does. Right. So, if that's true... And of
yeah,
course
there's a lot of manga here to go back through, so...
I know. I am going through memory, but I think at some point he calls him, like, the endless struggler, or the endless something. Which would then mean the Skull Knight is also an endless struggler.
He is.
Right, and that's what we see, because he's over 1,000 years old, and he's a skeleton. He's seemingly immortal. He will not die.
Mm-hmm. I mean, his body may as well be solid iron or steel.
Yeah. And that's presumably what's going to happen to Guts as well. Which means...
Well, presumably if fate stays its course and nothing changes.
Yeah, if the cycle stays the way it was destined to be, if you will. So that means Casca, like, that's a sad thing for Guts and Skull Knight, to be an endless struggler. They're always fighting. And it makes sense for those characters, because they've always been that character. And Skull Knight, and I'd say even Guts, have kind of accepted that. That's their choice at this point.
Is what you're saying in the long run that Flora and Casca and Guts and Skull Knight are it's just history repeating itself?
Kinda. I'm saying that Casca would have a peaceful ending if she was comparable to Flora. But Guts there's no way Guts can have a peaceful ending. He will be stuck like this.
I want to disagree because I want him to have a peaceful ending.
Oh, yes.
I mean, think about this. It's been 1,000 years, and Skull Knight has not been able to kill Void, right?
Yes.
But if there are 2 Skull Knights, that effectively doubles his chances, right? And even though Guts is still human-ish, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's still a threat. Like, put him in a room with one of the God Hand, and I don't know if that God Hand wins anymore. Depending on which one, I suppose.
Right.
I mean, the whole thing to me, it reminds me of like the plot to Dark Souls and how it's an endless loop, right? That the characters try to break out of, and I think that's what we're discovering in Berserk is that there is this loop. The cycle of the God Hand forms and dissolves every 1,000 years. We are now aware of enough characters that we can see the old versions of the new characters. We can see Skull Knight is Guts's, there's like a word I'm looking for that I can't find.
Yeah.
Basically, Guts is the new Skull Knight. You're saying Casca is the new Flora, and then we're just essentially trying to draw lines from the current RPG party of Guts and friends to older characters we may or may not know of.
Right.
Okay. Not really sure where I was going with that, other than just talking to myself and making sure I understand.
Just clarification. It's fair. So another thing is, who would be the previous Skull Knight? And because, like you said, if there's 2 Skull Knights, what does that mean? Well, why is there not 3 Skull Knights? Presumably, this is definitely not the first cycle, but it's hard to believe it's the second cycle. It's probably a few cycles in.
Mm-hmm.
So that would mean maybe the Skull Knight only survives for 1 cycle, or like a little more than 1 cycle, And then Guts takes his place. And then at the end of Guts' cycle, a new Guts will appear, and this is getting a little confusing, right?
That's what would happen if Guts and friends don't put a stop to all of it.
Right. That is the cycle, how it's supposed to happen.
I gotcha. I'm a little lost now in our conversation. Are we still talking Casca to Flora? Or,
we kind of...
Who do we have left?
Yeah, we kind of went off on a tangent there, but I think that's it. Like, unless you have something else to compare it to.
No, I really want to know more. Do we know any more about Zod?
Not really, dude.
I mean, we don't know who he sacrificed. We don't know if he sacrificed anybody, really. Do we?
We don't.
I mean, he's an apostle, so he had to give up someone.
Well, that's an interesting thought from what we were saying earlier, is that maybe he didn't, because he definitely seems like a special apostle. He's different than all the rest.
Yeah, he is the one who is most comfortable with being what he is.
Right, yeah.
Right, because I feel like if Zod... Okay, let's compare him for one moment to the Snake guy. The Snake guy, when Guts bests him, he's like, oh God, please don't kill me, I'm sorry. And Guts is like, get fucked, scrub, are you kidding me? Like, after everything...
GG easy.
Yeah, after everything you've done and said to humans, now you're gonna beg for your life? No. I feel like if Zod were in that position, he would accept it. I mean, he would probably fight to his dying breath. But if he were lying on his back, paralyzed, unable to fight back, he'd probably look Guts in the eyes and just say some cheeky thing along the lines of, like, good job.
Yeah, well done, struggler. Or something.
Yeah. And I just want to jump into one other idea real quick. I really hope that there is a future Zod Guts team up that they, like, discuss.
Okay.
Because the only other time they've quote-unquote teamed up is by sheer happenstance. They basically fell into each other and were like, oh, if we don't deal with this 100-foot tall lightning god creature thing, we're both gonna die.
Yeah.
It was a alliance, a short-term alliance out of necessity, and like no words, basically.
And even so, Zod didn't even want to. I think Guts fell on Zod's back and like put his sword to his eye. Yeah, and he's like, dude, I have a plan. Just fucking listen to me, all right? Like,
right.
Shut up and listen to me. So I was like, fine.
Right. Yeah, and I would love... I mean, yes, Zod has killed some of Guts' friends in the past, although they're probably all nameless. There's that... It's a rivalry, not a hatred.
Yeah.
And I think that keeps the door open to some kind of future alliance. Because think about it, if you had Guts and Skull Knight and Zod in the Eclipse together, now do you really think the God Hand would get out of there unscathed?
That's tough. Probably not.
No.
Like, the main God Hand might get away.
Void?
Yeah, Void. But like,
yeah, we don't really know all of Void's powers except the ability to open portals, right?
Alright, so here's the thing.
I have to read more chapters.
No, just this is the thought that I had.
Okay.
That's totally speculation, but it would be cool if his power is to control destiny in some way. So
the key words being in some way, because if you can just control destiny, well then nothing matters.
Right, like he can't control it completely, I would say. Like he more or less can do like a domino effect, or like, you know.
I would not be surprised if Void is the determiner. That's a weird word. Is the decider of where the Crimson Ballet goes.
I would believe that, yeah.
Right? Because as shocking and eerie as it was to see the Crimson Ballet float up to Griffith's hands while he was staring down in that shallow pond.
Yes.
I mean, it just happened. You know, it
like
came
it
back
was
to
destined to happen. Ooh.
Destined to happen. It came back to him for a reason. It stopped an arrow from piercing his heart for a reason. You know, all yeah.
So that's the kind of examples I'm talking about. Because remember the last episode, I also talked about how Guts can't die because he's destined. There's something else he's destined to do. So he survives all these crazy feats and whatnot. Same kind of idea, right? That Void is the one who's not necessarily controlling fate 100%, but just enough. Just he moves that Behelit just in the right spot to block the arrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more of a manipulation rather than a control. That's a better way to put it.
And you know what now that I said that, you know what I would really hate to see?
What's that?
I would hate to see Miura draw a bunch of panels that are like flashbacks to all the scenes where the Ballet saved Griffith or where fate intervened, and it's revealed that members of the God Hand were like there.
Like in the background?
Like polymorphed in disguise or something. I would hate to see that. A part of me wants to know if I'm right, if Void is moving the Ballet and controlling it, or if the Bailiffs are like their own entity that the God Hand just kind of work around. You know?
Well,
like,
and that makes you think, who created the Behelit? I mean, probably Void.
Oh, the more actual answer is probably mankind, and not in a. I don't mean like, oh, there was a group of secret wizards that made the Bailiffs. I mean the Bailiffs were just they materialized out of the raw, violent energy of mankind.
Yeah,
as mankind formed in its like primordial days.
And it seems like mankind's the only one who can use it as well.
Right, because I mean, as far as we're aware, there are no actual gods out there besides the God Hand. Right?
Yeah. Although I will say the witches seem to be outside of the God Hand's power. So the witches are apparently very, very... Right, they live in a different realm. But they seem to be extremely powerful as well. Not enough to stop the God Hand, but to, like, at least hide from them.
Yeah.
But,
well, the juicy part I was waiting for is not there.
Yep, sadly.
That's okay.
But guys, I think we're going to wrap it up here. This is a good time as any. If you guys want to add to the conversation about the Skull Knight or anything else Berserk related, feel free to talk in the comments. We will definitely be keeping an eye on that. And we'd love hearing about any theories and ideas you guys might have.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Don't forget to check out MulletWesker at MulletWesker. Wait, sorry. Don't forget to check out MulletWesker. Yeah, right? Don't forget to check out MulletWesker at twitch.tv/MulletWesker. Awesome content creator there. And also check out his YouTube.
MulletWesker on YouTube.
Any things to say before it ends, Mr.
No,
Mullet?
I'm good, man. Just maybe read Berserk again from the beginning, and hopefully by the time you're done, there'll be a new volume out, guys.
Yeah, exactly. One more volume.
Yeah.
But all right, guys, you have a wonderful day. Much love. We'll talk to you next time.